Hangout on Air, Community Manager Hangout. So welcome everybody. My name is Tim McDonald with my Community Manager. We are the host of this weekly Community Manager Hangout. This is the first one that we are going Hangout on Air, which means that we don't have to limit this to 10 people, and we will actually have a YouTube recording if all things go well at the end. And today we have our special guest is Trish Forent. Did I pronounce that right, Trish? I never discussed how I pronounce your last name.
That works.
Okay. And she is a community manager from Radiant 6. And so today we came up with the topic of managing community as part of a team. And so before we get started, I know we only have Eduardo here. And Eduardo, we've met you before, but now that we're going public, why don't you introduce yourself and say who you are, where you're from?
Hi. Thanks. As you can tell, I'm Eduardo Teves from Madrid, Spain. I'm not like a hand-read into social media. I'm more into the AdWords and SEO, but I'm really willing to learn a lot from social media, so I'm here humble and ready to learn. Well,
thank you. And Trish, why don't you, I know I gave you kind of a quick introduction, but why don't you let everybody know a little bit more about yourself and about Radiant 6.
Thank you. Well, my name is Trish Forent, and I'm a community manager for Radiant 6. And Radiant 6 is one of the leading social media monitoring and engagement platforms. So we do social. We get it.
That would be a good thing, I guess.
Absolutely.
And a very important one today.
Absolutely.
So what, we came up with a couple questions just to kind of get, get the, I'm sorry, I'm trying to, this is my little part that I can't do too well, is actually try and read something and be on camera at the same time. So we came up with a couple questions revolving around, because Radiant 6, you have more than one community manager, and so you at Radiant 6 have basically a community management team. Would that be a good way of saying it? Yes,
absolutely. We have a nice sized team, and we're working well together for the, it's very smooth. We all know what we're supposed to be doing, and we all have certain roles that we play.
Great. Well, let's start off with the first question, which I would say would be, what exactly does that community management team look like at Radiant 6?
It's an interesting team. We're a very diverse group of individuals. We don't all work in an office. Some of us work from various locations across the country and across Canada. We work, some of us are in the office, some of us are at home, and we all vary in age and experience. But for the most part, we are a team of about 15. We have people in the UK, because we have a UK office. So built into our engagement team is our Canadian team, our US team, and we also have our Radiant 6 UK team.
So about how many people would you say altogether?
If we're including our management team, it's probably about 15.
Wow, that's okay. I know you and I had talked not about community management, but just on another little show, and you had introduced me to quite a few people, and many of them were from Radiant 6, other community managers or community engagement people. So, I mean, they all kind of have different titles too, right? I mean, everybody's got a little bit different role.
Yes, we have community content managers. We have senior community managers. We have community engagement specialists, and we have community managers, and we also have a community analyst. So, but we're all part of the community team. So we all have varying roles, but that's constantly changing, because social media is constantly changing. So we're always open to reevaluating, but we are all part of one team. Okay. Well, and that, I guess, and if anybody joined in here, who do we got that came in? We got Mike here, Valerie's here. So how you doing, guys?
Mike, I don't see you. Are you there? Are you just not hiding on camera? Or?
He mentioned that in the chat that his mic has decided to stop working.
Oh, okay. And how are you doing, Valerie?
I'm good. I just got home from Friday party.
So it is. I keep forgetting what the time difference is now.
It's 2 a.m. here.
3 a.m. So
Wow.
Valerie is from the Philippines. So.
Yeah,
That's dedication.
I rushed up from my party just to get home for our first hangout on air.
All right. Well, glad you made it. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about what the community management team looked like at Radian 6, and does anybody else? I mean, Valerie, do you work with a team, or are you just the only community manager at your company?
Well, on my other clients, it's just me, but in my local client, I am working with our sales team right now, and we're using Salesforce to try to collaborate with the sales team and on my part, marketing.
Okay, cool. So you might be apt to pick up or have some things to contribute to as we talk about teams here. And Eduardo, you're just on your own too, right? Two of you. Okay.
It's just my business partner and I. It's a very tight team.
So let's talk about, I mean, I'm sure with that many people, Trish, that part of being a successful team is actually keeping an editorial calendar of what content is going to be shared with your community. So is that part, what does it look like, who does it, and kind of how is that filled up?
That's an awesome question. Well, we do have 2 community content managers, and it is their responsibility to maintain the content calendar. But what they do for us, and I think it's ingenious, is they actually take the time to build that content calendar. They give us a theme every week and an overall monthly theme. So they do content arcs for us. And normally the way that it works is, we write an ebook every month, and we try to blog to that theme, whatever that overarching theme is, whether it be community management or becoming more personal as a brand and connecting. So whatever the theme is, it might be content management, it might be creating campaigns, whatever that book is for that particular month, they create a content arc that guides us through, however many weeks we have that month and what each topic per week will be. And then we as community managers can go into the calendar directly and choose what days we'll be writing on and what topics we want to cover. Cool.
Well, but I get I mean, is there a specific platform that you use for this content calendar, or is it part of Radian 6? And I apologize in advance because I don't use Radian 6. So, it's not that I don't want to. It's just that I don't really work for a company that has the budget for it. So, so what platform do you use for Google Calendar or Google Calendar content? You can tell what I use.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of really amazing ways to do it, but we're currently using Basecamp right now, and it seems to be working really well for us. But there's, I'm sure there's plenty of fantastic platforms right now that, that folks could be using, but we happen to be using at the moment Basecamp. And we all have access to that, so we can all go in and, create tasks or create projects and cross them off when we're done and put, due dates and who it's assigned to, so it works very well.
It's interesting because I've used Basecamp before, but I've never really thought of using it for editorial calendar. So does anybody else have suggestions or thoughts as far as what they use for editorial calendar, or just using it on your own?
Calendar, mostly.
What was it, Eduardo? I missed the first part.
Google Calendar, that's what I would use.
Okay, Google Calendar for you too. Okay.
We share the calendar with my partner, and we share those dates with our business.
Okay.
We tell them when do we have the article up, and when do we change, when it's due to change something.
And I think, yeah, and I definitely think that, I think Google Calendar is great for it. I can see, I think when you get into a little bit larger of a setting, that it becomes a little bit, it can't really support and do everything that you need it to do. And Valerie, do you use anything different than those, or?
Well, right now on my other clients we are also using Google Calendar and Basecamp. But on this new client who is a local client, right now we're still working on how we will be able to collaborate on that content. So we're trying to make it exclusive on Salesforce. Everything is done on that system. I think Region 6 is also connected with Salesforce, but right now we're still trying to get to know that system, and then later on maybe we can expand it for that.
Very good, very good. Well, let's go to question 3. So with that many people, Trish, and I know you've kind of already alluded to it a little bit, but how do you divide the duties? And I guess we're talking Twitter, blogging, Facebook. Probably responding to comments on your blog, and I'm sure you probably even have some communities that maybe aren't public facing for your users.
Yes, absolutely. To speak to what Valerie had mentioned, Radian 6 is a part of Salesforce, so we do have an entire internal dialogue that goes on through Salesforce Chatter, which is amazing. So we are able to keep in touch with our coworkers throughout the day, our Salesforce coworkers and our Radian 6 coworkers, our Data.com coworkers, and pretty much everyone who's using Chatter for the company. How do we manage our community across all these different social networking platforms? Well, the way that we do it, because we do have such a large team, and this is something that that we're starting now going forward, is we're going to have more people engaging than we had before. People had different roles before, but now we're going to pretty much have kind of like a tier strategy where we have a primary person who is monitoring all of the brand mentions, and then we're going to have a secondary person who's going to be handling different social network outposts. So we'll have someone who is, primarily monitoring one particular channel throughout the day or in sections of the day, and then we'll have a secondary person who is watching the other areas. So let's just say, for example, we'll have a primary person who is scheduled to be watching Twitter for 3 hours in the morning, and while they're doing that for 3 hours in the morning, they have a secondary person who is assigned to watching, other mentions, like are we mentioned in a blog post, and comment to those blog posts so that everything's being covered.
So I guess, and this is part of, I'm sure, what Radian 6 is good at doing is, when you say you have a primary and a secondary person kind of monitoring, that the secondary person knows when or if they should or shouldn't have to be able to respond to something that the primary person would be doing, right?
Right, absolutely. We have a schedule, so our schedule lets us know who is primary and who is secondary at any given time. And then, of course, our platform allows us to see when mentions are coming in, so we know who's handling what at any given time. We won't have that issue where 2 people are working on the same thing, because we can see who's handling what at in real time.
Great. Well, anybody have any questions or thoughts or comments on how you guys use it? Valerie, Mike, you can feel free to type in. I'll read your questions out loud if you want. And Eduardo, any thoughts, comments?
Nah.
Just learning.
No? Okay. No problem. Well, this is going to be good. Okay, this is going to be one of my favorite questions, I think. Well, the next 2 are, because it'll be pretty interesting, especially somebody that doesn't work on a very large team of community managers, just to kind of get your thoughts on this. So, what is the biggest challenge of working with a team of community managers? And you can be honest.
Well, I think what's really interesting is I've never worked in an environment where there are so many creative people. Like, I've worked in many different environments. I've worked in the really, stuffy type of corporate environment where you are, just a number. But this is such a different environment. Being part of a community team and just social media in general, the people who are drawn to it, I think, are, for the most part, very creative people. So the biggest challenge, I think, would be possibly that there are so many good ideas that obviously you can't do them all at the same time. So it's kind of like we're in a constant rotation of who gets to go to what, who gets to blog about what, who gets to address a certain topic or whatnot, because everyone is really talented. So for me as an individual on a team of amazingly talented people, the challenge is always to, and I don't know if it's a challenge that's in a bad way. It's a challenge perhaps in a good way, like, these people are so incredibly creative that they inspire me to kind of push to my limits, push a little past my limits, and maybe strive to be a little bit better than I thought I could be. So it's not always necessarily a negative challenge, but one that is a challenge for us individually to constantly be motivated and constantly be striving. If I had to say that there's a challenge that might not necessarily be towards a positive, it would probably be that everyone has different personalities, and whenever you're working with a really big team, you always have to think about other people's personalities. And to use myself as an example, I have a tendency from time to time to be sensitive. So sometimes I have to say to myself, hey Trish, I'm sure that you probably read that the wrong way. Let's take a step back. Let's really take a look at what's being said here. I'm sure that was a constructive criticism, not necessarily, like I have a tendency to take things like I'm, as more of a direct thing as opposed to being like a constructive criticism. That's my issue. That's not what someone is necessarily saying to me. But because I'm human, I have those moments where I go, how was that meant? So it's always a challenge working with different personalities. So it's interesting, but it's not always in a negative way.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I think that definitely would be one of those things that yeah, I think that's true. It doesn't have to just be community manager. I think it could be really any type of role that you're in. I think in any type of large organization, I think that's one of the dynamics that comes along with that. So.
On a to be a tad controversial, as controversial as you can be without getting in trouble, to be a tad controversial, everyone is so, honestly, truly, I'm not just saying this, but everyone is really brilliant. And so, it's hard to stand out when you're surrounded by brilliance. So I think that's a challenge sometimes. We all want to be recognized for being, for doing what we do, and for, maybe striving in the area, standing out in the areas that we have a particular skill set. But everyone on our team is really good at what they do. And so, a challenge working in a large team is, what can I bring to the team so that I am actually positively contributing, that I'm doing something that is adding to the team, not just duplicating someone else's efforts.
Well put. And I know, Rue, how you doing? I know you just joined in.
Yeah, I was actually watching before I jumped in, so not this much.
Yeah, just so I'm learning a little bit here, because this is our first Hangout on the air. It looked like you had a problem actually clicking the post that was the on-air one, but there's another one that says join Hangout, and that one I shared with everybody that's circled up my community manager, because I didn't want to open it up to I usually do these public, and now that we're recording them, I don't want to have what happened last week when we have shirtless guys walking around in the background. So
good call. Good call.
So was that just the only issue with it then? Was just having to go to that other post?
Yep. Yeah,
okay, cool. Cool. So at least you were able to get in. So glad you're here. So and yeah, so we were talking about what was the biggest challenge of working on a team. So now I'm going to ask you one that will probably be a little bit easier to answer, which is what's the biggest reward of working as a community manager on a team?
Oh, okay. Well, probably the biggest reward is that you never run out of people to go to kind of bounce ideas off of or brainstorm with. That's amazing. So, and because they're also talented, there's never a shortage of those people. There's always somebody who has a great idea or somebody who caught something that maybe you didn't catch going through somebody else, through a feed or across a social network that could inspire you to write, the next blog post or whatnot. But that's probably one of the...
I really, really miss that. I wish I had more people around to bounce ideas back and forth, to give them a different view. But it's just my friend and I, and sometimes we just get dry. And it's
well,
like, oh my God.
That's the beauty now of social networking, is that you can crowdsource. If you have, you can throw stuff out there like in a Google Hangout like this, and just crowdsource it and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And there's never going to be a shortage of people with opinions. So yeah, that's the beauty of working on a large team, and if you're not, of having this amazing social network that you can reach out to.
So who else has some thoughts of some rewards of working on a team?
Well, it's really fun working on a team, especially if you're working with a lot of 3D artists, giving you different creative ideas on what they will be releasing next month, and what they'll be releasing today. So every time I go on our office, which I just went to earlier today, is they try to give me some new storyboards for our new contents, giving me some ideas on what will be released the next week and what we will be releasing for our prospect clients. So it's really fun because when you go there, they'll ask you what happened online or what did other people thought about us, and then they also get excited when you teach them how to communicate with other people beyond our office, because most of the time they're just on our office doing some creative stuff. So it's really fun on my part having a team of sales and creative people working with me.
Cool. No, I can imagine that would be, you're getting a lot of different perspectives, and I think that's probably one of the best ways to really, come to a decision or a path of what you want to do that kind of crosses all the different, aspects of it. So definitely there. What about you, Brew? I know you guys are a pretty small company, but you do have kind of a pretty solid team there.
Yeah, I think the for us the advantage of the team is that someone's sick for a day, and there's still someone there on the social channels answering customers and everything else. And then I think we just try to have this understanding of during the day Anna's usually taking care of most things, but then we collaborate a lot on ideas. On what we might be posting to Facebook or what we might be doing next to get the community involved with something. So it's always just it's nice even just for the two of us to have that kind of brainstorming as well as backup.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't know if you guys saw it, but one of the companies that I work with, Aztec, which is a interactive marketing agency here in Chicago, one of our clients has a Twitter chat every Wednesday, and my coworker Rachel Yeomans happened to be in the office this week. She's living in New York now, but she was back in Chicago, and it's only the second time that we've actually done a Twitter chat in person together. And so what we decided to do was actually live stream it using Spreecast, and so we were actually doing a live stream video of a behind the scenes on a Twitter chat, and it was, you know, I mean, obviously, and all you guys know me, I mean, I like to laugh, I like to have a good time. If you're not having fun with doing what you're doing for work, then you should try and find something else to do. That's my own opinion, but and I kind of show that by laughing a lot at what I do. And so it looks like we're having a really fun time, but if you really look at the screens and what's going on in the video feed, as I went back and looked at, we're looking down at the computer and monitoring what's going on in the stream and responding and looking at the video and looking at the Twitter stream and then looking at our personal accounts. And it was just like, I mean, a flurry of activity that was, but it wouldn't have been the same if we weren't working together. And to me, that was just kind of a highlight of what being part of a team means versus working on your own. Because I mean, yes, I can amuse myself, but not nearly as much as when I'm doing it with other people. So
Too bad I can watch this.
That didn't sound too good. I don't know if I want that on YouTube.
Too late.
You know, Tim, I think you raise a great point. And last night I was on a Twitter chat, and you know, usually I'm just alone for those, you know, being like a guest on a chat or something like that. And I happened to be with my brother-in-law, and it was amazing how much easier it was with two people in the same room saying, hey, you know, hey, I think you missed this comment, you know, you should, you know, and we were just kind of going back and forth, and it was a lot of help just having kind of that in-room backup for something that moves so quick.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There are actually sometimes when I have about 2 to 3 hours different Twitter chats that I'm participating with. So sometimes I'm telling my followers that sorry, I'm too loud today. Mute me for a while.
Well, it is pretty amazing. I mean, I've been spending a little bit more time on Twitter chats lately than I have been, but I don't. Do all you know Brandy McCullum? Does anybody not know who she is? She's Little Ways on, she's Little Ways on Twitter, and I'm gonna, let me see if I can get her name up here. And somebody's gonna beat me to it, I know that, but this is how I do when I'm like hosting the show. But I'll put her Twitter name up there, and but she is actually on so many Twitter chats, it's absolutely amazing. She did a blog post and wrote how many she does in a week, and I think it's something like 42, 43.
Oh my God!
So I mean,
you can only do 5.
I know it's mind-boggling to think how many Twitter chats she's on, but it really is. I think it's a great way to to really reach out and start engaging and not only with your community, but kind of reaching into other existing communities that you might want to get exposed to. So really a great tool there. So I'm loving that we got a little bit off topic a little bit, but yeah. It's good because we got plenty of time. We're like burning through these questions because it's a little bit different. I thought we were going to have a whole lot of questions and it hasn't been that bad. So, but this one might take us, and I think we can just kind of take it from here because this will keep rolling us on. But you're actually one of the, and maybe first answer, Trish, you write certain blog posts for Radian 6, but then other members of your team also write blog posts, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so how do you and I'm going to kind of say this in a way because you and I were working on what the questions were going to be and what the topic was going to be, and the first thing I thought of with Radian 6 was how do we measure,
Right, of course.
And when I proposed those questions to you, it was man, that's really not what I focus on, and so you have a different focus, and which is more one that we're kind of talking about today, and obviously a little bit different. See you, Eduardo. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to meet you.
And it's but how do you decide which who gets what topic, and let's start with that.
Okay. Well, yeah, definitely. I guess I don't want to say that I don't write about measurement. But let's just say that, actually speaking to ROI is not my forte because I don't do it in these types of forums. Like, I'm not someone who goes to events and speaks about ROI. So I always get a little nervous about, when we broach those subjects. But we have found, and this may be what other people find too, is that we have this overarching theme, and then whoever feels the most qualified to write about a particular subject has the ability to do that. So we do have a social strategist, and he does write a bit on measurement and ROI. And I feel, like for me, I feel like I'm okay with that. I like that because that's what he does, and he knows that he knows that much better than I do. Have I written about it? Absolutely. But I always feel like I need to write to my strengths. So we all of us have the ability to do that. And our community engagement specialists write on certain topics. So like I'll use Jen Seeley, I think, which I've introduced you to, as an example. She does a really great weekly column called Travel Tuesday because she monitors the travel industry. So, if that is your if that is where your interests lie, and you can write on that topic from a social point of view that is going to help a particular community, I think that is a really great way to do that. So there isn't anything that says I can't write about travel or ROI. It's just that those are not necessarily where my interests lie, and we already have someone that's covering that. So I like to write about monitoring and listening and engagement, and and talk about community. So we get to write. We have a lot of leeway. We get to write about the things that we feel passionate about, and I think it comes across in our blog posts when we do that. I think it's much better when you write to what you love and you're passionate about on any particular theme. This one is social media, of course, and so that allows us to, I think, be better writers.
So, and I guess, that kind of brings to the question that we kind of planned on was, you're writing about these topics, and obviously we know that you're passionate about it, and if you haven't read some of Trish's posts, you'll definitely see that in her writing. And I think that holds true for most people on the Radiant 6 team. I don't think I've read too many blog posts that come from Radiant 6 that don't, you can't tell that it wasn't a forced thing, I mean, everybody's writing what they really feel strongly about. So but how do you keep coming up with the the fresh ideas? Because I mean, even like I just give an example. I mean, we do these Google Hangouts, and we've only been doing them for I don't know, 2 months now. But every week we try and talk about a different topic. And for me, that becomes like, okay, what do we, how many times can we talk about, tools that we use? How many times can we talk about measurement? How many times can we talk about ROI? How many times can we talk about that? And, so it really is one of those things where you need to kind of get a different angle on it. It's not that you're talking about a different topic, it's just you have a different angle on it. So, but how do you, personally find, inspiration for the content that you come up with?
That's a good question. It comes to me in a dream. No. It's not. It's a challenge. It really is a challenge sometimes, and I think it's probably safe to say that happens for a lot of people. At least I hope I'm not the only person who finds it challenging to come up with fresh ideas from time to time. But I think that's my biggest challenge. Is how do you write about the same topic on a regular basis and still be fresh, fresh-faced on it, and still inspire people, but we have a lot of help. I have a lot of help. So like I mentioned, we write these ebooks every month, and our content managers are fantastic because they create these content arcs for us. So if ever I feel stymied and I can't come up with an idea, I can always look to the content art and say, what's the theme of the week? What is the topic? And, you know, I don't have to stick to that topic, but if I can't come up with something on my own, I can always fall back on that, which, you know, which helps because you know that you have that resource to go back to. Interestingly enough, and this wasn't planned, I swear across my heart, but our very own Jeff Cohen wrote a blog today titled 10 Ways to Discover Social Media Content, conveniently enough. And he touches upon a lot of the things that I think each of us do individually. I know I myself, you know, I've had times where I'm like, I don't know what to write about, and I'm just going to ask Twitter. I'm going to ask my followers. I'm going to ask my friends. And so I wrote a blog post called, it was about social media wishes, like what's your social media wish for 2012? And I basically wrote the entire article based on what people had said to me their social media wishes were. So crowdsourcing is fantastic. But Jeff also gives us some really good ideas and things that I've used myself, like, you know, what's going on in the industry, what do you see people talking about, what is the hot topic, and how can you write about that in a way that hasn't been said already by, like, Mashable or somebody. You know, I guess I'll give a couple of tips. Lists do really well. People love lists. Anything talking about Pinterest right now, gold. It's gold. I haven't written a Pinterest post yet, but it seems like anybody who writes about Pinterest, you know, it's golden. But, you know, ideas come in such really interesting places. We had a member on our team who was just stuck. She could not write. She couldn't think about what she was going to write a blog post on, and it was due that day. And she happened to be watching Sesame Street for whatever reason, and she came up with an idea to write this entire blog post about, she was inspired by Sesame Street. So you just never know where inspiration is going to come from, but you know, there's plenty of places you can look to find that type of information and what you're going to be writing about. But as far as, you know, just where do you get the inspiration to do that, you know, it can come from various sources.
Very true. So I'm actually putting up, because one of the first things you mentioned was list, and so I'm actually putting up Listly, and I'm just typing a little thing. So I don't even know if the chat will show up on the YouTube video or if it's just the actual video that shows up. But but I did put in the link to Listly. But if you're not familiar with it, it's basically all it is list, and you can invite other people to contribute to the list. But one of the great things about it is it's embeddable onto your site. So you can actually embed those lists onto your site, and people add to them, or you can even vote certain things up or down or comment on them. It automatically updates on your site. So, but one of the reasons why I brought that up is if you are, you know, thinking of doing lists for things, but also looking at existing lists is a great way to get some inspiration too for some ideas.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tim. I was actually doing some list posts this past few weeks, so this will be helpful.
Well, good. So I think Chris just joined us. Can you? I know we don't see you, Chris. It's a black screen, but do you have audio or?
I do, I think.
Yeah, I hear you. So how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good. Yeah, this is our first hangout on air, so it's a learning process for me to, you know, how I need to show it on the on our stream to let people know, you know, how to join in, which I think is maybe why our attendance is down a little bit compared to what it usually is. But glad to have you here. You just want to introduce yourself to everybody else that's here?
Sure. My name is Chris Geyer. I'm the community manager for a company called K2. We make workflow process software.
Glad to have you. Yeah, we're just Trish from Radiant 6 is our guest today, and we've just been asking some questions. So we were kind of on our last one, but I think it's one that really can kind of spur a lot of conversation, and so I'm kind of curious to hear from everybody else what their sources of inspiration are for ideas. So Chris, do you want to chime in, or did I not give you enough time?
I didn't hear the question, so.
Oh, well, the last question that we were just on is talking about how we come up with content, specifically for blogs, but it doesn't have to just be for blogs. But just how do we keep coming up with fresh content and so where do we find inspiration for new ideas?
Well, for me personally, I keep a running list of stuff I want to blog about, and I get that list really from listening to what other people are talking about, or get inspiration from reading other people's blogs and going, ooh, that gives me an idea. I should take this in a different direction, and I should talk about it from this angle. I think one of the greatest ways to inspire content to talk about is just to listen and get inspired from other people.
Yeah, I think that probably is one of the truest things, I think, just about anything in life. I mean, none of us create new things. It's reinventing, existing things. And I think that holds true very much with coming up with ideas for content too. And I do, and that is one thing that I always try and tell people. It's, if somebody else wrote about a specific topic, you can write about it. It's not a bad thing to write about somebody else's topic, because you are coming at it from your viewpoint, which is unlike anybody else's. And so you're always going to put a unique spin and a unique perspective on it that nobody else is going to be able to share. So definitely, I think looking at existing ideas and different stories that are out there is by far and away probably the easiest way to find inspiration.
For sure, and if I can also say, something that I find really helpful too is, a lot of times if I'm stuck, I'll say, it's really good to find out what your community wants to know about. But I've actually, been in a room with, some of our sales team and spoken to them and said, like, what do you hear? What do people want to know? Like, what are the questions that people are asking when they're asking about, when they're asking about our product, when they're asking about our platform, what are they stuck on when it comes to social media? What do they want to know? Are they having problems with training their people? Are they having problems with crisis management? What are their fears? What are their concerns? And that makes a great blog post, and it makes your salespeople happy too, because they can go back to those customers and say, hey, remember when we were discussing this? Well, we have a blog post on it now, and this might help you in this area or whatnot. So, you can get a lot of inspiration from your own sales team or, or your marketing team.
Very good point. Very good point. So, how about you, Brew? Any sources of inspiration from you? And don't say it comes from your beer.
Well, no, I would say, I think for me, it's less of an issue for me about the inspiration, but like when it comes. So I kind of follow 3 little guidelines. One is that if I'm ever at my computer and I have any small idea at all, I just open up my WordPress, I bang out a title, and even just and just a messy post that maybe I'll never publish. So I have just like hundreds of drafts that I can always just go back and look at, which then sometimes I turn into a post, or, it gives me inspiration for something else. The second is, like if you have a smartphone, it has this thing that can record your voice. And, sometimes you're driving and you're ticked off about something, and, like you've all had those moments where you just need to rant to yourself, record it, and it might be some great content to use. And then the third is I have a notebook that I always make sure is in my backpack and then at night by my bed, so that if I wake up in the middle of the night with one of those crazy ideas, instead of forgetting it by the time I wake up, I just quick jot it down. So for me, it's more about making sure I surround myself with the ability to record those ideas. And yes, sometimes they come when drinking a beer.
You can tell I've hung out with Brew before.
Yeah, probably some of the best ones come when you're drinking beer.
So, well, Mike just noticed that, is that a Commodore in the background there, Brew? And I think I've talked to you either on Skype or on Hangouts about 4 times, and I haven't noticed that yet.
Oh no, that's actually an old Weiss terminal. So for the old school people, that's you hooked it up via serial for chatting on IRC back in the day.
That's not Frosted Flakes either. Not that kind of cereal.
Oh, we're giving away our age now.
So, well, let me, Brew, you bring up an interesting point because I am kind of the same way as you. I am at no shortage for ideas. It's just a matter of remembering them when I need to remember them. And so, you kind of nailed it with what I do as far as just real quick go into my computer and put like a working blog title and like 1 or 2 sentences about what I want to write about. And then I don't think I'm quite up in the hundreds, but I probably have a good 30 or 40 of them in there. But I'm just kind of curious, does anybody else have any kind of tools or methods that they use to kind of help keep track of those ideas when they do come up?
I use Evernote.
Yeah.
Evernote? So both of you guys use Evernote?
Yes.
Yeah, I use Evernote as well. So, I mean, have that installed everywhere. I mean, again, just some spot to save whatever's in my brain at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said. I mean, basically, you have to have all these different resources that you can go to jot stuff down when inspiration hits. And if you're driving in the car, then that might mean recording your voice on your smartphone. I actually wrote an entire blog post in the Notes app on my iPhone. So you just never know when it's going to happen. So you just got to be ready to to jot it down and run with it. Somehow it never happens when you're actually sitting at the computer trying to make it happen. So.
Yeah.
I love that idea, Trish, because I think I am going to just start recording my voice and on my iPhone, because that's like to me the problem with using something like Evernote or any other type of app. I mean, Notes isn't that bad, but whenever you're using an app, you always need to wait for it to open up.
Right.
And then you might need to log in, and then you might need to do that. And I don't know about you, I have a very short attention span. So, if it takes me more than 2 seconds to log into an app, I've already forgotten what I wanted to, put in there.
Yeah. Well, I can't take credit for that. That was Jonathan's idea, but yeah, I definitely do that. And I don't know if I want to admit that I actually sleep. I'll admit that I sleep with my iPhone and my iPad right next to me, so that if it's weird, but it's true, right, Jonathan? Like you're just laying in bed, and all of a sudden you've got this. I don't know, maybe because we're finally for once still and quiet. That's where all the ideas happen, and in the dark when you have nothing to write with. So it's good to have something that you can just reach over, whether it be a notepad or some high-tech device, and just jot it down or record it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I read somewhere that at night when your body is getting ready to go to bed, your brain is just sort of like taking everything that has happened, and it's sort of like filing things, and and so that's why people actually have that comment of let me sleep on it, because sometimes things are more clear as your brain gets into that cycle. I think if you think about another thing, we're creating ideas right here over video. So I would even encourage that, if let's say you have somebody over to your house or the office or whatever, and you just start talking about, an industry or an idea, just throw open the video camera and record it. And, there's always great things that people say, but then we forget them. So at least then it's recorded. I know
true.
Somebody who wrote an entire book that way, just having conversations out loud to a video camera.
That's true, and I think that, that's such a fantastic idea, Jonathan. That's amazing, because I think a lot of times when we're having these conversations, we're already processing I'm processing what you're saying, and I'm already ready I'm ready to talk to what you're saying. So in a way, we kind of tune out what someone's saying, because we're already formulating what we're going to say, or what our answer or what our response is going to be. So when you record that, you're catching things that you missed. Not necessarily that you forgot, but maybe things that you missed, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is a very good point. So we got 9 minutes left in our Hangout. So does anybody have any questions that I didn't come up with for Trish at Radian 6? This is where we put you on the spot.
What's that? I can't hear you.
Yeah, my connection's going bad. The video signal.
There's something wrong with your headset.
I'll do my best.
You don't have that cam app in that makes everything like go all
Static.
funky and everything. So, Chris, you got anything for Trish that you'd like to ask?
No, I think I was listening before I could join, so I was watching most of it.
Well, good. Yeah. Well, I mean that's kind of the nice thing I think about what these Hangouts are going to offer is an opportunity to really spread what we talk about every week to a wider audience, and I'm really excited about that aspect of it. So I'm glad you finally got in. I'm glad you're able to watch it. Next week I'll probably be a little bit cleaner as far as telling instructing people where to join in. So and Mike is asking, how can one go about becoming a community manager with Radian 6?
That's a great question. Well, we always have our job openings listed, and really all you have to do is apply. And, I would say, if you're going to do it, you got to do it in a creative way, like blow our minds. Don't just shoot over a resume, but we had someone who created a website. They created a web page, and they made this amazing web page that spoke to us directly and said I am your next community manager, and here's why, and here's what I've done, and we could click on links, and we could see pictures, and we could do, we could interact with the page in such a way that we saw not only his qualifications, but we could see his creativity. So I say if you're going to do it, be really creative. Maybe, create a meme on why you should be a community manager at Radian 6, or a video, or we had someone who wrote a blog post. And they got so much positive feedback and so many retweets that it was just, we had to pay attention. You can't not pay attention when someone is doing really well in social and is reaching out to you. So I say absolutely, be as creative as you can possibly be.
Now, that brings up an interesting point, and I know this is going a little bit off our topic here, but do you have to be creative to be a community manager? Is that one of the skill sets that you have to have?
That's a good question.
Because I'm wondering why that's such an important component of what you're looking for. And I know the attention-getting part. I know that element of it. But the creativity part, is that really something that a community manager has to have as a skill set?
I think it depends. I would say, for what we do at Radian 6, the way that we handle community, I would say it's a great idea to be able to be creative. But it might not necessarily be that you have to be creative in every community manager position. I think it would depend on the community, and I think it would depend on the company. But, it certainly can't hurt. But, yeah, obviously, we are a little, we're definitely a serious company, but we have a lighthearted and friendly and fun vibe to us. I wrote a blog post called, how social media is like your crazy ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend. So, you can kind of get a feeling of, we've got this fun-loving side to us too. But, maybe if you're working in, a more stringent industry where things are much more serious, maybe creativity isn't at the top of the list. But I would think it's an important part, especially if you're going to be writing on a regular basis and engaging with people on a regular basis. But I don't know. What does everybody else think?
I think it depends on the community you're a part of. There are communities where creativity will play less of a role, and it's more formality and organization, but there are definitely a lot of communities where being creative, thinking of different ways of doing things is very important.
Brew?
Yeah, I think the word creative is pretty wide. And it's not like you got to have mad Photoshop skills
Right.
or things like
Yeah.
that. But I think that even creative problem solving in the community or creative ways to engage, I think even if you're just managing it like systematically, there's probably still an element of creativity involved when you're trying to figure out your strategy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as long as you like your brand and you love what you do, I think creativity just goes out naturally.
Yeah, and well, Mike says he needs to be hired yesterday, but I'm going to challenge Mike. I'm going to challenge you to just do more than come up with a creative blog post and a blog title. Come up with something other than a blog post. I think that's what I think they're looking for. I actually saw somebody, and this is more, I would think, geared towards more of the startup type of companies that are looking for community managers. I know they are definitely looking for different ways for people to stand out and differentiate themselves, and it really is one of those things that I'm sorry, I'm laughing at Mike what he's writing, and I'm not going to say that, and hopefully it won't show up on the on the Hangout. Because now I'm not going to have pleasant thoughts in my head now.
And Tim, just so you know, the chat doesn't appear when you're watching the Hangout on YouTube. So
Good.
Good. We're safe.
But I did see somebody that used a new platform, which was kind of like a presentation, like a SlideShare type of program, but it was like including video and animated, and it was basically Trish telling you the exact same story that what you said that the person wrote the blog post about, working for Radiant 6, it was working for this startup company, and to me that was just, if nothing else, it gets your, the people's attention.
Sure.
And I'm a firm believer, and I'm a little old school, but I still believe that you should never just send in a resume without contacting somebody within the organization first. That's another huge component. And so if I wanted a job at Radiant 6, I would be probably talking with Trish before I ever thought of sending anything in to make sure who I should be talking to and what are they looking for, and all these things. And if it was at a different company, I would try and find somebody that I knew, or somebody that knew somebody at the company that I could talk to. So always do that before just blindly sending anything in is always my suggestion.
Yeah, and we actually, obviously you have to be more than, you have to have more than like a really cool presentation. You have to have the skill set too. But we actually have on Twitter, we actually have a Radiant 6 Careers handle. So people can actually reach out to our, our HR department directly, and and speak with the people who are actually going to be going over those resumes. So they can tell you better than I could exactly what they're looking for. So it's actually Radiant 6 Careers.
Awesome.
Not that I'm not happy to introduce, but if you want to follow along and see like what they're posting, that's a great way to do it.
Absolutely. Well, we are on the 2 o'clock hour, so at least in Chicago. I know it's 3 o'clock on the East Coast and 4 a.m. in the Philippines. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Trish, thank you so much for being our guest. I hope you had a good time hanging out with us today.
I did. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. We'll see everybody next week, same time, same channel, and we'll be on YouTube until then. So talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Have a good
Thanks.
weekend, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.